What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Hey guys, and welcome to Fantasy Points' newest show. It's the Underdog Drafter Party. I'm Jake Tribbey, and I'm here with my co-host, one of the best football writers around, Ryan Heath. Me and Ryan are going to be drafting some Battle Royale teams, talking about our favorite scroll down options, and discussing contest-specific strategy throughout the show. I should note that before we get started here, this is also a pretty unique show. There's an NFL game happening right now, which means our producer, Thomas Tipple, who is currently invisible, will also be chiming in occasionally to let us know what the hell is going on while we draft some underdog teams. But Ryan, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Very excited to do this show with you. Glad we could finally convince Scott to let us do a show together. It took a lot of work on both of our ends, but I'm excited.
It did. It took a concerning amount of work to tell the CEO, to force the CEO to put his two best young writers together on a show with a brand new game format. It made a ton of sense to me. Didn't make as much sense to management, but we convinced them. We persisted. We got here 8:30 p.m. on Fridays. We'll be here every week drafting Battle Royale teams, and I hope this will be the only week where there's a live NFL game happening during our drafts. We've also promised our viewers, ourselves, our families, that for every touchdown Christian Watson scores during the game, we will draft one share of Gabe Davis. We would also be interested if anyone else has any gross players they'd like us to draft if Christian Watson scores. But Thomas Tipple will certainly let us know, I'm sure, loudly and proudly when Christian Watson walks into the end zone that we need to draft Gabe Davis. Without further ado, let's get into sort of the ADPs and, the way the slate's looking before we get into some of these drafts here, obviously starting at the quarterback position. I should note we have a great tool that we're using so that you guys can see my exposures, these game totals and spreads, along with the weather. It's bestballoverlay.com. I believe next week we may end up having a promo code for this tool, but I've used it in probably a dozen drafts. It's really, really nice. So if you're confused why this doesn't look like the standard Underdog website, why it has these exposures and alongside the spread, the total, the weather, it's because I'm using this fantastic overlay that is very reasonably priced, only about $30 a month before a promo code. And like I said, we should have one next week. But getting into these quarterbacks here, you guys can see where I stand, pretty flat across the board. I think this is a fairly good week to be flat at quarterback. Ryan, I'll throw it over to you. Are there any quarterbacks that really stand out to you in 6-team, 12-team drafts, or just overall on this slate?
I'm drafting a lot of Stroud, and there's a few reasons for that. One is you take him early in a draft, and there's just a lot of outs, right? If you miss on Collins, you can very easily go with like a Dell Diggs double. You can pick up one of them. You can do like the Pittman bring back. Just a lot of ways to make it work. And I like the matchup a lot. Stroud's awesome against cover 3. I also realized, though, kind of as I'm sitting here, like Stroud is the QB2 in Battle Royale. Why don't I just play him on the main slate instead? Now that I'm thinking of it, I don't know. That might be the move.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Stroud in Battle Royale is going to be 100% owned. I don't think there's any doubts about that. I've done about 50 drafts. I haven't seen him get past about pick 22. But yeah, in DFS, Stroud's looking at 4-5% ownership at 7,500, which is a bit expensive, but he's a much better play, much better leverage opportunity there. I don't think me or Ryan is watching the game, but again, Thomas behind the glass is. And I would be worried about Jaden Reed if I had drafted him at all, which I didn't. It looks like he's only playing in 11 personnel. So yeah, Christian Watson to the moon, and obviously Dontavian Wicks, will soon emerge and probably push Jaden Reed to the bench. Or Dontavian Wicks is the greatest wide receiver of all time, right? Right, Ryan?
Yeah. He's pushing Romeo Doubs to the bench. We don't want Dontavian Wicks in 11 personnel. We want him on every snap.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, yeah, that's a great take. Yeah, I would be worried about Reed as well, Tyler. Yeah, for me, quarterback on this slate, I think is pretty straightforward in the sense that I do really want my exposures to be pretty flat here. I'm comfortable with just about everybody down to, let's scroll a little bit. Fields is fine. I think Darnold is fine. I've taken some Geno Smith as well. Oh, I'm actually on the early slate. Switch to main. Yeah, I've taken some Geno Smith as well. I think there are a lot of really strong quarterback options. One guy I need a little bit more of is Jane Daniels. Found myself taking a lot of Caleb Williams, who I think is in a really sneaky game environment here. In some of these deeper 12-team leagues, you could even argue for a guy like Justin Herbert, if only because the offense is going to be so concentrated between Josh Palmer and maybe Lad McConkey. I don't think I'd get to McConkey even in a 12-team draft, but Palmer is certainly popping as a strong projected play. Let's move on to running back here. Ryan, to me, this running back slate largely looked like a slate where you want to grab a top 4 guy. And, my top 4 is a little bit different than ADP. And then beyond that, it's extremely deep. I actually think there are viable plays down to RB20, RB22, at least according to ADP. Anybody who stands out, and any thoughts on overall running back strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I'd maybe even go a little more extreme than you. I think this slate is kind of Bijan and then everybody else. I'm fine with taking an HN, taking an ETN, a Taylor. They set up nicely in stacks, certainly as bring back options, but I'm not taking any running back aside from Robinson based off of, his projection is so much better and I want him at 100% owned. Yeah, I am scrolling down to the Raheem Mosterts, to the Devin Singletaries, pretty often. I'm doing a lot of 2 running back builds, which is a little unusual for me, but yeah, I'm going to have insane Bijan exposure, and that's kind of Bijan and leave at the running back position.
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. Just looking at our half PPR projections for the main slate, Bijan is 2.2 points ahead of the next closest running back, which would be Jonathan Taylor. You'll see those guys go back to back at times, but I would be in agreement. Bijan is certainly a better play. You can see my exposures. Obviously, I've drafted a ton of Devon Achane. I just love the upside there. I think that's a pretty simple argument. Most efficient rookie running back in history. And as Ryan pointed out in his great weighted opportunity article from the offseason, these guys who are hyper efficient almost always see a usage bump in the following season. These coaches watch the film and they say, holy shit, I got to get Devon Achane the ball a little bit more. And when I mentioned that my top 4 running backs were a bit different than consensus, I have Kenneth Walker pretty clearly as the RB4 on this slate. And you can see that by my exposures thus far. Walker is a fantastic play. The buzz out of camp has been outstanding. I expect this offense to be significantly more efficient. He's playing Denver, which is just a truly disastrous defense. Beyond those guys, like I said, I think this is a very, very deep running back slate. Ryan, are there any guys who, after RB10 or so really stand out to you?
Yeah, I am taking a lot of Singletary. If I ever have like a Justin Jefferson team, that's a really easy mini stack, is just take Singletary. I have not physically done this yet, but I want to do at least one team where it's a Caleb Williams double, and maybe not a double. It could be a Caleb Williams double and Tajay Spears. He's going to be 0% owned, and he honestly doesn't project that much worse than guys who are being drafted like 50% of the time. We have him on FantasyPoints projections for 11.3 in this scoring. That's about as much as Aaron Jones, Jerome Ford. That's more than Raheem Mostert. So I'm liking Tajay Spears. Eberflus and the Bears always give up a ton of receiving yardage to running backs as well. So he's one I'm really kind of zeroing in on, and someone that I think can just be like, this makes your lineup unique, and that's all you need if you're drafting a chalkier team.
Yeah, I know that's something that you pointed out this offseason, is just how outstanding Tajay Spears was as a pass catcher. And with, Chicago expected to win this game, I do think that's certainly a viable play. It's something I'd be looking at a lot more in 12-team leagues rather than the 6-team drafts, if only because, we expect him and Tony Pollard to rotate drives. And I am just a little skeptical of the upside if we know the snap shares capped at, say, 55%. That said, I am a huge believer in him as a player, and I do expect him to emerge as, a pretty strong running back talent. As we work down the stretch here, a couple guys I wanted to highlight. Chuba Hubbard is a really gross bet on volume. If you think this Denver-Seattle game goes a bit against the spread, obviously Denver is a 6-point dog, but if they manage to win, I think Javonte Williams has a pretty good amount of juice here. And then I've also been taking a decent amount of Raheem Mostert, who is going to go totally unowned in both Battle Royale and DFS, despite being a pretty great fantasy asset overall in the league's most valuable fantasy backfield. It just doesn't quite add up to me. Moving on to wide receiver here. Wide receiver, pretty similar to running back in the sense that I do think it is particularly deep, but we'll start out with these early round wide receivers. Anyone who sticks out to you, Ryan?
Yeah, so I think that this receiver slate kind of stops after 6 guys. So I'm interested in taking the top 6 and mixing them into all my different stacks and lineups just as naked plays. Evans in particular, I'm really into this week. It's just insane how good he was against single high last year. Dan Quinn with the Commanders is like the single high guy. He was top 2 in the league last year. So I'm taking a lot of Mike Evans. And after that, I kind of stop caring and I start looking to scroll down. So I'm taking obviously a lot of Tyreek, a lot of CD. You can only get them at the 101 and 102, not deviating off of that. But yeah, in the back, I'm just kind of reaching for Evans. If I get Evans in round 3, I'm really happy. And I'm like, oh, I can't mess up this team now. I got round 3 Mike Evans. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think there is a pretty significant drop off after that wide receiver 6 spot in ADP. Unfortunately, I do have 16% Jamar Chase, who I have really backed off of. Obviously, looking like he's going to be limited this week. May not play, but I think most likely just plays and is limited. Of course, he's a guy who could get you there on a very limited number of snaps. So I'm curious, Ryan, is there a spot in drafts where you would be okay taking Chase, or is he just a complete avoid given the uncertainty?
Oh yeah, I completely glossed over him. Yeah, I'm just not drafting him at all. So this is maybe we talk about like late swap and drafting injured players in this. I just like to avoid it as much as I possibly can because yes, you technically can late swap. It's going to pick you can set your late swap rankings. It'll pick the guy that you have rated the highest, going like in order through the draft, picking everyone's top rated guy who wasn't drafted. Honestly, it's a lot to keep track of and to try to manage. So just from like a laziness standpoint, I don't really want to deal with it. So I avoid the guys that are genuinely not likely to play. So Chase would fall into that. And yeah, I just don't know what the ceiling is if he has a limited snap share, if he's on like 40 to 50% of the routes. Like, is that really what the projection that I want to be drafting like in round 2? I don't know. The opportunity cost of that is pretty big, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty significant. I would certainly consider it if he fell to the very end of a draft, round 5, round 6. I would give it some thought, if only because Jamar Chase is one of the few guys that I would have confidence could still score you 25 half PPR points on a 50 or 60% route share. That said, it is extremely thin, extremely high risk. And, with so many great receivers in the top 6, I don't really want to get too cute. I'm certainly not taking him in the first 3-4 rounds. That's a complete avoid. There are a ton of great scroll down options at wide receiver. One of my favorites personally is Keenan Allen, who when I checked earlier today, do I have to scroll even further?
It's a good scroll down option.
Yeah, exactly. But when I checked earlier today, he had the same ADP as Cade Otton, which was unreal. We'll get to tight end here in a second. Very, very gross. But I'm curious, Ryan, any good scroll down options at wide receiver for you?
Yeah, I'm liking Deontay Johnson. So he projects fairly well just in terms of receivers going later. I'd say like a step below like a Chris Godwin or a Josh Palmer based on the FantasyPoints projections. But also really like that he could potentially see a lot of man coverage. He was awesome against that last year. Just a constant drumbeat of Deontay Johnson is our number 1 X receiver. We're going to totally feed him, is what we've heard all offseason from Canales. So I just want to get in on Deontay Johnson at basically 0% owned in Battle Royale, because why would I not?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic take. Deontay Johnson, one of the best separators in football. So he's certainly a guy that I need to take a couple shares of. Doesn't look like I have any exposure so far. Jackson Smith and Jigba is another one that I wanted to mention as a pretty interesting option, going largely undrafted. And, it's mostly because obviously we do expect some efficiency increases in the Seattle offense, but Lockett's hurt, and Lockett always plays terrible when he's hurt. JSN is going to be out of that, pretty gross, basically negative A dot role that he was in last year. So I think there's some juice there. Another guy that I'm really excited about as a run back on some Bear stacks is Calvin Ridley. DeAndre Hopkins is questionable, and I think for the Ridley play to really, do well, more specific to DFS, but this would apply to Battle Royale, you don't want Hopkins to play. You do want Hopkins to play, but to be used as a decoy. I guess for Battle Royale, you could argue, because of the drafting dynamics, that Hopkins not playing would actually be best for Ridley. Obviously, in DFS, it would really jack up his ownership. But Ridley's a guy I've been looking at a lot. Could be in the Jamar Chase role here in this offense. We've already talked about Joshua Palmer. Let's just move on to tight end. Very, very gross tight end slate. I basically want no part of tight end, especially after tight end 6. It gets really, really bad. After Brock Bowers, you're only looking at guys who are either terrible, old, or in committees. Ryan, what do you think about tight end this week?
Yeah, it's kind of in the worst possible spot because tight end some weeks, especially later in the season, we're going to see, okay, there are 1 or 2 viable tight ends on this slate. And that's kind of fine, right? Like, all right, most other people are not playing a real tight end at all. But you're kind of screwed here because there's a very, very clear top 6. And that just makes it really hard to get creative. I cannot talk myself into Dalton Schultz or Brock Bowers or Jawan Johnson or anybody outside of the 6 you're looking at. So yeah, I have ended up with pretty big Evan Engram exposure. That's kind of the spot I like the most here. But the only reason I don't have a ton of pits is I have a lot of Bijan, and I'm a little hesitant to stack both of them up. I guess it works with the Fields bring back though. Now that I'm talking through that, so that might look to do some of that. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching tight end. I do think Dalton Kincaid is kind of a terrible value though. I will say that unless you're doing like the Josh Allen thing, I just don't really see the point.
Yeah, Kincaid is the tight end 5 in our projections right now for half PPR. So not very encouraging. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think in these 12 team drafts and 6 team drafts, you're more than fine with, or I'm more than fine with waiting. You can get Kyle Pitts in the 5th or 6th round occasionally, Ferguson and Njoku, not too terribly gross. In these 12 team drafts, though, I would massively prioritize tight end. I think you could, just add a couple spots to tight end ADP in these 12 team drafts because you do not want to be the last guy to take a tight end and get stuck with K-Dot. That is absolutely brutal. Ryan, I think we've talked enough about the slate. Let's do some drafts. Let's just start off with a regular battle royale. I do plan on mixing up, some of the game types and some of the drafts that we do. I think there are a lot of good contests that Underdog offers, obviously between 6 and 12 team drafts. But I also think the strategy changes a bit when you get into, this battle royale field, 68,000 entries, obviously a $5 entry. Some of these single entry contests, though, only a few hundred entries in the, $25, $50, $100 entry range. The strategy there is, I think, a lot different in regards, or I should say, it's a lot different in the sense that I will be prioritizing team and game stacks even heavier in some of the smaller fields relative to the larger fields. That's something that we've seen a lot in DFS, where a lot of the best sim players, guys like BGRE Seth, who has been fantastic, especially in spring football, in 100, 200 man contests, you'll see this guy play a quarterback and 3 wide receivers, which is something that I would not have necessarily thought is optimal, but tons of great DFS players have let me know is really, really strong for smaller contests. And it's because if that offense goes off, you basically only had to get that one single thing right, and then you're at the top of the field, and you aren't really capping, or you don't have to worry too much about capping your upside when the field is smaller by, heavily stacking a team. Any thoughts on that, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I mean, the smaller the field, like the less optimized the winning lineup is likely to be, right? So you don't have to aim as high. You don't have to be as insanely perfect, right? And I mean, even you don't have to go for like multiple extreme scroll downs, right? So like when I'm talking about Tajay Spears or whatever, probably not necessary at all in smaller field type of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would not be getting to a guy like Tajay in smaller field. Drew, this 3 spot here, would you prefer Justin Jefferson or Bijan in this draft spot?
Let's draft a Jefferson team. I've been drafting a lot of Bijan teams, but yeah, we can go Jefferson here.
Yeah, Jefferson's pretty nice because while I'm not super eager to stack him with Sam Darnold, I am more than fine, making it sort of a mini stack with either Neighbors or Devin Singletary. And Singletary is a pretty strong value that you can easily grab at the end of drafts. Coming up on pick 10, do you have a strong preference? I'd be more than fine. Obviously, Nico Evans would probably be the best case, but I'm not sure those two will fall to us. Yeah, any thoughts here?
Yeah, Nico Evans would be nice.
Looks like we will get one. James Conner, 8th overall. That is pretty goofy. Do you have a preference between Nico and Evans? I have a little bit more Nico, but I do love this game.
Yeah, let's go Nico here. And yeah, I think I like Evans like straight up, but we can mix it up a little bit. That's what I'm doing here. Maybe he falls. Probably not, but
yeah. One thing that I was thinking about doing was maybe a Stroud team with Mixon and Nico. I think that could be pretty interesting. I've also seen Stroud fall a lot, so I'm not necessarily sure I want to take him here. Scrolling down a bit. Would you rather go running back and hope Stroud falls to us, or do you want to do a different stack entirely?
I think if you're wanting to take advantage of Stroud falling, I think you go McBride or Ingram, right? Because we prefer them, and you can get the running back value later, where you can't necessarily with the tight ends.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I have been looking to draft a little bit more Ingram, if only because I think he should be the tight end 1 on this slate. He just isn't quite priced appropriately, and I don't think my current exposures fully reflect that. Let's see here. So we've got Nico. Yeah, I'd be looking at Stroud pretty easily for the next pick. And this gives us an opportunity to show off this tool. So one of the things that you can do, obviously it shows you your exposures, but one of the coolest things you can do is you can see your combinatorial exposures. So, how much of these 3 players do, and someone took Stroud. That is brutal. Well, Ryan, what do you think our backup plan should be? We could target the Jacksonville-Miami game. We could target the Minnesota-New York Giants game, or we could just say, fuck it, and take Justin Fields with our last pick, totally uncorrelated.
Yeah. I mean, my impulse is to go to Miami, I'd say.
Okay.
So I don't mind how Jalen Waddle projects on the slate. It's 3 wide receivers though. Yeah. We're in a little bit of a pickle, I guess.
Yeah. This is tricky seeing Stroud go a little earlier than I had hoped. I'm good with Jalen Waddle. Now, generally speaking, I am drifting more towards 2 running back builds. But when you end up with, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle as your wide receivers, I'm really not too worried about it. It would be awesome if Kenny Walker fell to us with the 5th.
We're making the argument with this team right now for why you go Bijan in the first round.
No, yeah, that is very true. Justin Fields just went 24th overall in this draft room. I really want to see this guy's team. Yeah, it's totally uncorrelated, but wow, that is incredible. Of course, Kenny Walker goes. I think we're probably looking at Tua. And then a scroll down running back. I'd rather take Tua here because if we somehow get sniped on him, this team is basically fucked.
No, agreed.
Yeah. All right. So we will take Tua, and then let's decide who our favorite scroll down running back is going to be, at least on this team. Get a little bit of correlation with Singletary. We get the team stack with Mostert. Do you have a preference, or would you like us to look elsewhere? I'd be fine with either.
I don't know. Do we think Mostert is live like to catch a touchdown? I don't know. Like last year, I said yes, absolutely. I'll stack Mostert with Tua, but all of the talk about Achane being
that does add some hesitation. But I view this as more of a bet on the overall offense. Where if Miami puts up say 42 points, you won't care if Raheem Mostert catches any passes, right? Because he probably fell into the end zone a couple times, and ideally Tua and Jalen Waddle. Had a better game than maybe Tua and Tyreek would have. But if you don't feel confidently in it, let's go Devin Singletary. I'm fine with the mini stack there. I think we got pretty solid correlation across this team, which I'm always very happy with. Ended up with Tua, Devin Singletary, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, and Evan Ingram. So got a nice mini stack in there, and then got some solid correlation in the Miami-Jacksonville game for a game stack, plus Nico Collins as sort of a one-off wide receiver. I feel pretty good about that. Would have probably preferred 2 running backs, but yeah. Any thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, no, you completely agreed. We should have just drafted Bijan early on. That's kind of the in my head. I'm usually taking Bijan at 103, but in these drafts, it's like, especially with Jefferson kind of crystallizing as the 103 now as we get closer to the weekend. You only get Jefferson if you take him at the 103, right? So it's like you have to get your exposure at some point when you're up there. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I prefer to take Bijan.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Let's fire another battle royale here. We can also look at some other contests. One of the ones that I was looking to play, let's see where the $20 is. Either the victory formation or the bomb. Were both looking pretty tempting to me as a potential stream show. Would also like to hit a 12-team draft, but let's do another regular battle royale here and see what happens. The nice thing with the battle royales, the straight up ones, is that they fill instantly. Some of the 12-teamers, I know you were DMing me last night, can take a minute to fill, which is a little frustrating. Saturday nights are generally pretty good for them filling, but yeah, if it's like midnight on a Wednesday, I mean, good luck.
1 a.m. after Thursday night football, I'm really mad no one else is in the underdog lobby with me. Yeah, this can't believe that no one else wants to draft me.
Yeah, exactly, man. I just checked our private chat behind the scenes, and it looks like about 15 minutes ago, Christian Watson dropped a touchdown. So we were very close.
Oh,
yeah, we were very close
to tell me that.
Davis share.
I was in blissful ignorance, not knowing that.
Yeah, we have been spared the Christian Watson touchdown drops.
Not just that, gentlemen, but Jordan Love missed Christian Watson by 3 yards in the back of the end zone, a la Lamar Jackson, or we would have had a Gabe Davis draft situation.
Oh my gosh, this is wow. Sick. I mean, it's great for my EV, but not great for Christian Watson drafters. Drew the 3 spot again.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I'm never going to stop arguing about Christian Watson on Twitter. That's what.
No, I mean, it's fine. I'm on your team. I'm on your team when it comes to Christian Watson, man. So certainly can't blame you. Let's go Bijan here since we just got cucked on a Jefferson team from the 3 spot. Feeling very good about that. I've really loved, and I do think probably waiting to scroll down at running back is a bit more optimal, especially if you're like drafting off of our projections. But I have really loved pairing Bijan with either Jonathan Taylor or Devon Achane when I get the chance.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I mean, Taylor projects pretty well too. Like it's really Bijan, Taylor, step down everyone else, just a half step between Bijan and Taylor for me. But not going to get a chance to do it here.
Doesn't look like it. Yeah, Achane's off the board, so then we're looking wide receiver. I think Mike Evans is pretty much the only reasonable option to me. I don't have any Jaden Daniels, so I really wouldn't hate making this a Jaden Daniels team. You can grab McLaurin. Yeah, his ADP's 34, so he could be a final round pick. Jaden Daniels also going fairly late here. Yeah, also 34. So they could be our last 2 picks if we wanted to go that route. Obviously, we're pretty wide open with what's available to us, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's nice when you're planning to just take like a scroll down QB, because you can kind of do whatever you want through the rest of the draft. Just take your best values, try to go for mini stacks. Yeah. Unfortunately, it sucks that there's no Steeler that I feel good about a mini stack with Bijan on. But
it's absolutely brutal. You could argue for Pickens, and I would not. I don't think I would either. Najee, but playing 2 running backs in the same game is generally a pretty bad idea. At least per age-old DFS research. This is a pretty wide open spot here. I'm not sure. Kind of like Kenny Walker. Beyond that, I'm not sure I love anybody. Do you have a strong take, Ryan?
I'd maybe go Ingram just because, again, probably don't want to double up on Bijan and Pitts unless you're into doing that. But that's where I'd lean. But I'm cool with either.
That's fair. Just took Ingram. I'm going to hope Kenny Walker falls here, and then we could ideally round this team out with a Jaden Daniels and a Terry McLaurin, which I think is pretty strong. Terry McLaurin is looking like a really strong play in DFS because they released his salaries before the Jahan Dotson trade. So he's ridiculously cheap over there. Still pretty cheap in Battle Royale. And, maybe Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner, is just amazing. But so far, Bijan Robinson, Mike Evans, Evan Ingram, pretty wide open build, and something that I'm very comfortable with on a slate that's really deep at quarterback.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I don't know. Do you feel like you have to play McLaurin with Daniels, or would you ever go just naked Daniels? Because I don't know. Maybe I just am not convinced about Terry McLaurin like as a talent. But we were having this discussion last night where I hate playing guys I don't think are like amazing football players. And obviously that's a very like seasonal mindset, but yeah, I don't know. You have to tell me sometimes like, no, it doesn't matter. Like they're projected for fantasy points.
I would say that I would try to get McLaurin on most of my Daniels teams. That said, I mean, his scramble rate might just end up being so high that, you don't really even need that. I know Hilo was talking on Cashing Points about how the way Tampa Bay plays defense is very conducive to forcing scrambles. And Jaden Daniels, I would imagine, especially in his first NFL game, will probably be oh shit, I'm getting blitzed. Look at my first read and then just run. So I certainly don't mind Jaden Daniels naked. I'm going to try to mix it up because I don't yet have any Jaden Daniels teams. I think our first pick between the two should probably be McLaurin. I have a hard time deciding because I'm not exactly sure who people would want.
Yeah, I don't know whose ADP is even higher, but yeah.
Yeah, they're basically the same. I guess we can lean McLaurin because he's very slightly higher.
Yeah, you go McLaurin because if we get sniped on Daniels, you can save it with Justin Fields naked or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we could take Baker too.
True. Yeah.
So that's totally fine. We got McLaurin. We will queue up Jaden Daniels. And this should be a pretty unique combination with me. I only have 2% Bijan and Kenneth Walker, which is pretty surprising since those are two of my favorite running backs. And I would imagine I don't have any. Yeah, no Evans plus McLaurin. So this is a very unique team for me. And I think that's crucial when you're I think this tool highlighted on the screen is crucial for when you're drafting these teams, if only because I've noticed, throughout my history of playing DFS, playing Battle Royale, when I just draft manually and I don't, have any checks put in place, I'll get these hot spots. I'll get these clusters where, every Mike Evans team ends up having Kenneth Walker for whatever reason, because that's just how the draft broke or, how my mind worked when I was drafting the team. So I think this tool has been super, super helpful for me, just sort of spreading out my exposures. And I can feel confident that, if I have 50, 100 entries in this contest, that I won't end up getting cucked if, Kenneth Walker gets hurt and Mike Evans scores 50 points, all those teams are ruined or anything like that. So yeah, I think that's pretty big, just being spread out if you're doing multiple entries. But looking at the team here, I believe I need to scroll all the way down. Is it not in there? I will refresh. We had if I remember correctly, it was Jaden Daniels, Bijan, Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans. Yep, here it is.
There you go.
Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, and then Evan Ingram. That's a team that I really, really like. I think very, very strong for the slate. Got some great correlation. Got two of the best running backs on the slate. Got the best tight end of the slate. That's a team I feel pretty good about. Any thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I am totally all about this one. And yeah, kind of as I wanted to say when you were talking about like the combinatorial ownership, worst feeling in the world is, like a player I have a ton of is absolutely going off. I'm going to look through my lineups and see what I've got him in, right? What I'm working with. And yeah, every single one is dead for some other reason because you didn't mix your guys up enough. So yeah, no, totally agree that is crucial.
Yeah, and I think the clustering and the, sort of those hot spots, ignoring combinatorial ownership is a lot easier to do in Battle Royale than DFS, just because of the way these drafts break, where say you get the 4 slot over and over again, you're going to end up with a lot of teams that look really similar unless you purposely try to get different. So I do think that's a pretty crucial note. Ryan, what do you say we at least try to get into a 12-team draft? Because I do think the game theory in the 12-team drafts is far more interesting than the 6-team drafts. The edges are significantly bigger because you get deeper into the player pool. So I'd like to get into a 12-teamer, but if it's not full, we can back out and try something else. But let's see how we're doing here.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Only waiting for 2 people.
Ooh,
Do you think we can tank long enough for this draft to go live? I will I will tweet. Maybe this will help.
Yeah.
But we did
on our stream draft. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. I know that we both or at least I managed to get into a couple 12-team drafts before this show. So, I did want to highlight that tight end is just an absolute disaster in these 12-team drafts. I mean, when we get to this tight end 12 range, Jonnu Smith isn't too bad, but then you're looking at, Kate Ott and Zach Ertz. It's really, really gross. Cole Kmet likely in a committee, Fryer Muth probably in a committee. It is bad, man.
Yeah, I don't know. You're like, I guess my like panic button would be Ertz and hoping that that's just like 7 Jaden Daniels targets and like 6 catches for 30 yards or whatever, and it's enough. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's really tough.
It is really, really bad. And this should be hopefully one of the worst tight end slates of the year. Only waiting for one more person, thankfully. If you guys are watching, feel free to hop in here as long as you promise not to snipe us. That would go a long way. But yeah, I think with only one more person, totally willing to wait, even if it takes a few minutes. Ryan, what are you most excited?
Dontavian Wicks just might have got sent to the shadow realm in the bench after dropping a 20-yard wide open ball right off his hands.
Oh,
it might be over.
Cool.
Yeah,
his second drop of the day, by the way.
I feel like we made a great decision doing this show when we did, because we are avoiding what would be an extremely tilting game, probably for both of us, Ryan. So that feels pretty good. Drew the 6 slot here. Thankfully, this draft filled up. That was relatively reasonable. Only took a couple minutes. Again, the liquidity gets deeper and deeper as you get later and later into the week. So these have an easier and easier time filling the closer you get to Saturday night, Sunday morning. 6 spot here, though, obviously would love Bijan Robinson with our first pick if we could swing it.
Is it less attractive to take Bijan in a 12-team, though? Because there's just more, like, the running back value matters more. I feel like running back is the deepest position on the slate, and you can take more advantage of it. Am I making sense at all? I don't know. Yeah. There's still obviously a big advantage with Bijan, but it makes, I don't know. Maybe you are more inclined to prioritize like a QB or a tight end than a Bijan.
Yeah, I mean, that could certainly be argued. I would be nervous because our next pick would be 18th, 19th. So I would be a little nervous that we would be stuck, potentially outside the top 4 tight ends. I just really don't feel comfortable taking Kincaid or McBride that early. I think if I was going to pass on Bijan, it would be ideally with a wide receiver. But yeah, I mean, I certainly see your point there. If we're getting deeper into the running back pool in these 12-team drafts, the advantage of Bijan may not be quite as great as in a 6-teamer. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. It doesn't apply yet because there's just not enough. If this was a slate where there was like prime Travis Kelce plus George Kittle or something on it, then I think that would be the way to go. But the projections at tight end just aren't enough to matter, I guess, against a Bijan. Yeah, we won't get anyway.
Exactly. Justin Jefferson would be great. Bijan already off the board, unfortunately.
Yep. And I'm okay with Taylor. I'm okay with Taylor here as well. Yeah, I'd say I'd lean Taylor here, I think.
Yeah, I believe I would as well, if only because it is generally pretty easy to put together in Indianapolis and Houston game stack as we sort of go deeper into this draft. Stroud could fall to us, AR could fall to us. So I feel pretty good with Jonathan Taylor here. Ryan, I should ask you, how comfortable would you feel playing, Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the same lineup? To me, I think it's fine, but I know some people, Anthony Richardson isn't going to target running backs very often. The chances Jonathan Taylor catches a receiving touchdown isn't great, but like I said previously, it's more of a bet on the offense. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have not done it at all. Maybe I mean like large field. That's a large field type of play, or no? It's a large field type of play, right? Because you're betting on the offense. It's not going to be a popular combination. Low chances, I guess, as you said, of him catching a touchdown. I haven't done it at all personally, so I'm probably not. Yeah, I'm probably a no there.
Yeah, another combo that I would be okay with would be like a Geno Smith, Kenny Walker, JSN. Something like that I'd probably be more excited about in a 12-teamer, but I also think is totally okay in a 6-teamer. For this next pick, I feel like we're going to be looking at either CJ Stroud or a tight end pretty much no matter what, right? Unless you had other thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much, Stroud. I'd say Stroud. Probably Stroud first, just because that sets up the stack very easily. Later on, with David Dell and the Taylor bring back, which is I imagine is an even bigger advantage in a 12-team, just because it's probably a lot harder to put together like a double and plus bring back type of stack in a 12-team draft, just with how much later or how much later and deeper into the player pool you're getting.
Yeah, especially like a Stroud team, I think would be pretty tricky. So if we can land Stroud here, that would be pretty nice. Tank Dell going way too late in these drafts, and Diggs going right around pick 30 as well. Pretty nice values. I don't understand Diggs being more sought after than Dell. I think Dell's a straight up better player. And
I think it matters though if Diggs is just playing like 20% more routes. Like,
I don't think that's going to happen. I know, you could argue some of the preseason and we got sniped on Stroud. Let's see here. I think we should just go Evan Ingram and figure out our stack later, because tight end is about to get brutal.
I
here in a few picks.
Agree.
Yeah. So unfortunately it didn't go quite to plan, but we can certainly still make this team work. Things are pretty wide open for us with Ingram and Jonathan Taylor, which is a combination I actually don't have yet. So pretty happy to grab them. I'm not sure
on every single team so far.
We have. And I mean, it makes total sense. He's the tight end 3 in ADP. He's the tight end 1 in our half PPR projections. I think he's a really strong pick. He's a guy that I don't think I had enough of coming into this show. I'm very happy with the Evan Ingram pick here. The nice thing with these 12-team drafts is because quarterback's so deep, wide receivers relatively pretty deep. It is pretty easy to grab later round stacks that you really like. Do you have?
We could go for like a Lawrence double, maybe get like Brian Thomas in play here. Is Ramsey gonna miss the game? What's like the latest on that?
Ramsey looks pretty questionable. They're also down Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb is off of a knee surgery. Graham Barfield pointed this out in, I believe, our projections chat. So this should be a pretty great spot for the Jacksonville passing game. I mean, I've always looked at, I know Scott Barrett is the number 1 Trevor Lawrence hater. I've always looked at Trevor Lawrence as a bit of a more handsome Derek Carr, but I do think there could be some juice in a game environment that has the highest total on the slate. For this pick, though, I feel like we should probably go best available wide receiver and then try to make the Lawrence stack happen, if you're okay with that.
Yep. No, I agree.
All right. So Olave, for me, it'd be probably Olave, Dell. Yeah, those would probably be my 2. I don't have much Olave, so that would probably be my immediate lean.
I like Olave a lot. I'm interested to see what the Saints offense looks like. Not that I'm like excited for Derek Carr or whatever, but this is, I think, originally a Rich Rebar talking point. So anytime I repeat what Rebar says, I feel smart. So, but
of course,
Saints were bottom of the league in motion and play action last year. Clint Kubiak coming in Olave was like way more efficient on all of those snaps. They just never did it. So interested to see what happens there. I think this might be the year for Olave. I don't have much of him in seasonal, but I'm kind of into taking the shot in week 1.
Yeah, no, Olave's ADOT was just ridiculously high last year. They need to get him some more scheme targets. I mean, he's obviously very, very good. And I think this could be a pretty compelling spot for him here. So yeah, I feel pretty good in the sense that we have, a top 10 or so wide receiver, a top 2 or 3 running back, the number 1 tight end. This is a pretty great build to go off of for, some of these later round stacks here. Let's see. So probably want to take Lawrence next, or we could also look at running back. I would be a tad worried waiting on Lawrence that he could get sniped. Obviously, we could still fill in the gaps, but I think a Lawrence double would feel really good. Do you have a take?
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What number is our next? Not that it even. So this is annoying. This is something Underdog needs to fix. Why are all of the ADPs just showing like they are in 16 drafts? That's infuriating. I want to know what the ADP in a 12-team draft is when I'm in a 12-team draft. Come on, guys.
I would assume they're worried because there are obviously significantly more 6-team drafts than 12-team drafts, that if people got, particularly weird in 12-team, that the ADP could look, maybe too off versus what they think the market should be. Either way, though, that's another reason why I'm trying to prioritize these 12-team drafts a bit more, because after pick, say 35 or so, ADP doesn't tell you what to do anymore. People really have no idea what's going on. So I do think it's, the edges in these 12-team drafts are significant, and that's at least in part because of ADP. Someone took Trevor Lawrence.
We're not. Tua's also gone, right? I'm assuming. Not that we even.
Yeah. Tua is available, so we could go with that. I think I'd rather try to grab one of these rushing quarterbacks. We could probably wait a bit. Let's see.
We could do like the Jaden Daniels plus Chris Godwin run back.
Potentially. I've been leaning towards Keenan a lot as sort of a bailout play. We could grab him. We could grab Caleb. I really, really like Caleb. And then just go with a running back here. Very unfortunate to get sniped on Lawrence, but more than fine. I think Caleb has to be our next pick. If Caleb gets sniped, then we're probably looking at Justin Fields as just the mega gross. Hope he runs for 150 yards play. Do you have a backup plan, Ryan, if Caleb Williams goes?
Let's see. If Williams goes, we're not drafting Carr. That's
no chance.
Yeah, no, I think, just naked Fields or naked Daniels are kind of your only choices. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of more. Whenever I get sniped on like the stack I'm trying to build at the start of a draft, I will just throw my hands up and take the running quarterback, because then if I can't stack him, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Even if my preferred bring back gets sniped, there's usually at least one other option that I can kind of make work and talk myself into. It just feels way worse when you get sniped on 3 straight pocket passers, which Williams goes, that's what's about to happen to us, but hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully. And he just went. All right. So we are absolutely cooked in this draft. Great way to start off 12-teamers here. We could try to go Tua, but there's just no one else to really pair Tua with. We could grab a Jaden Daniels. Would you prefer? Let's see what our projections say here.
Are there any receiving running backs that we don't hate? We could go like Levis Spears or something. I don't know.
That is particularly gross.
Throwing stuff out.
Ooh, man, this is a tough one. Definitely, yeah, man.
But if you just want to go naked Daniels, I'm fine with that too. But
yeah, I think that's probably best. Fields is fine too, but we'll go Naked Daniels. Hope he runs for 1,000,000 yards, and then we can take another running back here. Unfortunately, this draft didn't go quite to plan, but I still feel okay about the team that we have. We could get a little bit of correlation if we ended up going Chuba, but so far it's Jaden Daniels, Jonathan Taylor, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Evan Ingram. So not a ton of correlation, but certainly plenty of decent players.
Chris Godwin's not on the board, right? Is he gone? Just check for me. I know you want to go 2 running backs, but
Chris Godwin is off the board.
I don't mind Chuba here. I think it's nice, like whenever there's like the dusty kind of chalky running back in DFS that I don't want to play on DraftKings, but he's going super late in Battle Royale. I like that because I'm like, okay, I can get exposure to the actual good plays in Battle Royale at lower ownership at the very least. There's a reason I lose a lot more money on DFS than I do in Battle Royale generally.
Oh yeah.
So
DFS is a lot harder than Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would lean Jerome Ford, if only because he has a slightly higher projection in our stuff. It is really nice that there are still, plenty of viable running back options here as we near pick 67, which is our next pick. So I really love how deep these drafts are. And I do really hope the 12 teamers catch on a bit more because they are a ton of fun. And I think the edges are absolutely massive. And like Ryan said, a lot harder to correlate. So if you can land, a double and a premium bring back or something like that, you're in a really great spot, but obviously tough to do, as you guys have seen in our draft.
Brian Thomas going in the 6th round just makes me so upset we got sniped on that whole Lawrence plan. Oh my God, it would have been so nice.
Yeah, that would have been pretty nice, but oh well. This is
Noah Fant and Dawson Knox. That could be worse.
I think part of the fun with Battle Royale is that you aren't in complete control. You're just going to end up with some teams that you kind of hate, but at least you can't swap off the nuts. All right, Joe Burrow goes pick 66. I say we just take Jerome Ford here. Unless you really strongly prefer, Zach Moss, Chuba. Najee's okay. Don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to cape up for Chuba. So, yeah, I think your lean with Ford is totally fine if he's the highest projection here.
Yep, and he is a fellow UC Bearcat, so always got to rep my guys. Final team here, Jaden Daniels, Jonathan Taylor, Jerome Ford, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Evan Ingram. This team gets there by Jaden Daniels running for 1,000,000 yards. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor and Jerome Ford doing the same. Olave and Keenan doing well, but not so well that their quarterbacks are pushed to the top, and pretty similar for Evan Ingram. So it's a thin path, but I imagine there are a lot of teams that are far worse looking than ours in these 12-team leagues.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we did a good job just like lining up with the value pockets of the draft. Like I'm really glad we took Ingram up there. Like that was excellent. Getting Ford at the end, all like just from a pure projection standpoint, I think we're doing pretty well. But yeah, obviously you wish there was some more correlation.
Yep, that is how it goes sometimes. All right, so for our next draft, and we are nearing the hour mark, so we'll probably only do 1 or 2 more. I was hopeful to hop into one of these single entry tournaments. Let's see how the victory formation is doing in terms of fill. All right, we need 4 more, so that's probably not ideal for a stream. Let's check the $100. If we do end up getting in here, we got to really lock in, Ryan. And there is no one in here. All right.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can. Why don't we rip another BR, and then we can maybe check those lobbies again immediately after. So far so good. I feel like 12-team draft didn't go quite to plan, but we have gotten some great Battle Royale teams. We drew the 3 spot again. So yeah, quite a lot of pick diversity for us so far. Probably
honestly, I'm not even that concerned about that 12 team we just did, because you got to think the percentage of teams that are just totally dead in 12 team, like from the go, has to be so much higher. I wouldn't call our team totally dead like that. No. That team wins like sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'd be right there with you. And another thing that I've noticed just from the handful of 12s that I've done is people reach a lot further, which is interesting. And I'm also seeing way less shields in 12 teams. Now, that might be a bit anecdotal because I haven't done a huge sample of 12 teams versus 6 teams, but I do just think these 12 teams obviously are, softer, bigger edges because of the nature of the game. But I also think they just attract softer players. So definitely something worth noting if, like pretty much everybody, your budget is limited and you're trying to figure out where you want to spend your, 40, 50, 60 bucks on Battle Royale.
Absolutely. Yeah. They also do a good job of like mixing in like different like max entry sizes as well. Like I think I maxed the 20 max before it filled on like Tuesday, which was ridiculous. But yeah, I like to try to start with the smaller fill ones and then get into the main like on Friday or on Saturday when we just have kind of a better idea. But you can definitely get
CD number 3. That's pretty great. Yeah. I'm with you there. Another note that I had for this show was that if you guys are entering earlier in the week, I would prioritize the contests that have filled the most. So like the $3 this week, like Ryan said, filled, right around Tuesday. I would pay close attention to fill rate because if you are drafting earlier, I would prefer a contest that fills earlier. So that way you aren't getting killed by any late breaking injury news where guys, massively jump up the ranks. I would keep that in mind.
Yeah. And it's nice to rip a few of the slow filling ones too, because they, especially like very early in the week, or even as we get deeper into the season, if you're drafting on like a Thursday night, if the contest drops on a Wednesday, you will get ADP combinations that will not be possible for 75% of the field when they're drafting Friday night and later. So it is worth going into the main at least a little bit just to get some unique teams. But yeah, just a note there.
Yeah. No, I certainly line up with that. Have done a bit of both. I don't have a strong preference. Fine with Kenny Walker. Also have Mike Evans available here. Nico Collins.
I think I lean Evans. You can probably get Walker like next round, right? I don't know.
Probably. I'm going to go Nico, if only because I think the Nico Lamb pairing is probably the most unique out of all of those options.
That's fair.
Let's see. Oh, I actually already grabbed it at least once, but still more than happy with that. And especially if you're going to like a 2 wide receiver build, like we are ideally going here, can feel pretty good about grabbing 2 of the top 6 wide receivers on the week. Stroud would be pretty nice. Always fine with Kenny Walker. Yeah, what do you think? What direction do you want to go this draft?
Yeah, a Stroud team would be nice. We've talked about getting a Stroud team all night and haven't done it yet.
We have, yeah. All right, we can make that happen. And maybe Kenny Walker will fall to us here with our next pick, which would be quite awesome. But we could, this also opens the door for a slightly later tight end pick. We could maybe go Schultz.
Yeah. Or I was going to say I feel a little bit better just waiting until Njoku with Lamb. That's probably going to be a pretty popular combination, but I mean, there's, or what do you think? Do you think the field when they're taking Lamb is just going to wait for Njoku every single time and that you're going to be running up against everyone with that mini stack if you're taking it just because it's so easy to get? Or do you think people just won't pay attention to that?
I don't think so. I don't think, obviously there are plenty of sharp players who play Battle Royale, but I don't think that makes up a significant percentage of the field, at least based on what I've seen so far. Obviously like people with red shields are a lot more likely to correlate in that manner, but that is kind of a bit more of an advanced DFS kind of thing. And I would imagine most Battle Royale drafters just really aren't looking at something like that. A lot of great options. We could go Kenny Walker. We could go Evan Ingram.
Ingram is tempting, but I think we can go Walker. We've taken Ingram every single draft.
We have taken Ingram every single draft. I wouldn't hate making this Schultz team potentially. Yeah, we have a lot of outs here, which is pretty nice. If Ingram were to fall to us at our next pick, I think we basically have to take him.
Instant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get fallers. Oh yeah. Okay. And that guy's correct for drafting him because Evan Ingram's not falling to pick 24 very often. So you're getting him in round 4 with a bunch of guys you can't usually get Ingram with. Yeah, no brainer. Yeah, that's going to be a very unique team, and he doesn't even have to scroll down super far. So that's what's really nice about drafting the fallers there. Whether you like them or not, it's probably good to do.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it in best ball where, advance rates go up, just the EV of your lineup goes up significantly by drafting guys who fall. I think I would lean running back here. I imagine we can get, if we want to go Schultz, we can certainly get him with our last pick, or we could take Kyle Pitts. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we can wait at tight end, and I'd take a Schultz or take a whatever it ends up being. Yeah.
All right. I ended up taking the Mosterati there. I think he's one of the best late round picks on the board. So really, really happy with him. And I've also, I imagine this is a fairly commonplace thing, but I would imagine grabbing, 2 guys with a sub 34 ADP really makes your lineup especially unique relative to just grabbing, a single scroll down option. So more than happy to grab Schultz and Mostert there. Really don't mind the reach. I mean, running back just gets so flat after those top 6 or 7 guys are off the board. Basically everyone else feels the same to me.
Yeah, no, agreed. It's I think people maybe overemphasize the scroll down a little bit. I meant to get to this offseason and I never did. You can go ahead and take Schultz. I meant to get to it this offseason and never did. Because they released the entire season of Battle Royale drafts, like all of the data last year. I really wanted to look into it and see, okay, what exactly is like the ownership expectation, like at all of these different ADPs. I have like a rough idea that it starts falling off pretty quickly after like a 30 ADP, which is maybe earlier than some people might expect. But yeah, it's definitely also at the onesie positions, that's where you're gonna usually get the most bang for your buck on a scroll down on most kind of slate agnostic, especially on this one with the QBs, I would say. But
yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I think, especially on a super, super gross tight end slate, you could make the argument for any of these really gross guys on the basis that they're going to be, roughly 1% owned. I need to refresh so that we can see our most recent team. CJ Stroud, Kenneth Walker, Raheem Mostert, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz. Nice correlation there. Got, one of the best offenses in football, got 2 of my favorite running back options, and then got, the clear wide receiver 2 on the slate after Tyreek Hill. Feel pretty good about that team.
Yeah, no, that's a beauty. We've only drafted one bad team tonight, Jake.
we have, and it was in a 12-teamer, so we clearly get a pass for that. Let's check on the single entry stuff for our final draft. See how that's looking. Oh, still not full. Okay. I would imagine the single entries really peak Saturday night, so might not be ideal for a Friday night stream, but we should at least check to see. Still nobody in the $100. All right. What do you say we wrap it up with one last battle royale, and then we get on out of here? All right, one last team. Ryan, let's make a point of making this a more of a unique stack here. Who do you want our scroll down quarterback to be? I think there are a lot of good options.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. I wouldn't mind a Geno team. I wouldn't mind a Cousins team either. I could be talked into. I haven't done that at all, but I think that kind of works.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We drew the 3 spot again, which is pretty incredible. Someone better than me at math could, I'm sure, figure out how likely it is to grab 3, 5 times in a row or something like that. But yeah, obviously we're looking at, CDE, Justin Jefferson, Bijan here in this range. I can't believe how high Josh Allen is going, man. It's unreal to me. He projects quite well, but on a slate like this, it makes no sense to take him in the first round.
Yeah, and there's no good stacking options like at all. Yeah. Like Dalton Kincaid in round 2 does not do it for me. Like, yeah, we were talking early in the week. I think the only way it makes any sense to do it is just Allen, chalky, and then like a Khalil Shakir is the only Bills receiver I can even talk myself into at all.
Yeah, and that's hard to feel good about in a 6-team draft. In a 12-team, I'd feel great about something like that, but 6, it's not exactly great. I was running so hot on 101s that I'm pretty disappointed we haven't gotten any Tyreek yet. Would you rather go Bijan or Jefferson here? I'd probably lean Bijan.
Yeah, I think we go Bijan, and then that can set us up for like a Kirk stack if we want.
Yeah,
obviously Bijan is just my favorite round 1 pick. So
it would be pretty easy to land like a Kirk, Bijan, Kyle Pitts team with just the best available elsewhere. Always a little tough when they're playing a Pittsburgh team that has no viable run backs, but at the same time, it's some great correlation on a passing offense that I think we're all pretty excited about.
Yeah, and I mean when Cousins is gonna be sub 5%, sub 3% owned, then I don't care that much about the run back, right? Like exactly. You don't need to differentiate against other teams that are taking Cousins because there's like 4 of them besides you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I think that is a really sharp take. Let's see here. I would be pretty happy to grab Achane or Taylor at our next pick. Beyond that, we're probably looking at the next best wide receiver. I mean, the nice thing with prioritizing like a late round Cousins stack is that we can wait for a guy like Pitts. We can wait obviously until our very last pick to grab Cousins because no one's taking him naked unless you really hate money. Also no shields in this draft. One black shield, but pretty soft overall. I've had drafts that are all red shields, and those are generally noticeably tougher. I don't know what you've been faced with so far, Ryan, but oh man, Achane goes probably Evans here, right?
Yeah, agreed. Evans just is the best naked play here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I did most of my volume kind of earlier in the week. I'm going to get a lot more in tomorrow. But yeah, I was pretty heavy in the shields. Drafted battle royales on Mondays and Tuesdays, but I think it gets easier. Like the lobbies on average do get easier as you get into Saturday.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's something I've noticed as well. More casuals later in the week. I would also imagine there are probably more casuals if you're drafting like immediately after work or right before bed. So maybe like 5:30 to and 10 p.m. something like that. You probably get a few more casuals. It seems like all the drafts I hop in at like 12:30 at night are just all red shields, which is generally pretty tough. Again, if we're prioritizing a Kirk stack here, we can pretty much do whatever we want. We could reach a bit for Kyle Pitts, could also try to wait around to get value. Drake London may be there. Oh, he just went. Yeah. What do you think here, Ryan? I could be convinced to go a variety of ways. Wouldn't hate a second running back.
Yeah, it's a little tough. I would go McBride, but it's the Kirk stack, so no reason. Yeah, I think we probably go another running back here. We can go with your boy Ken Walker. I'm fine with that.
I mean, I just love Ken Walker. I want 30% Ken Walker in everything I do this week. So we can grab Ken Walker. Hopefully Kyle Pitts comes back to us here. But overall this team is shaping up pretty nicely. I love, like I said, 2 top 4 running backs feels great. A top 4 running back plus a scroll down feels great. I've been really, really happy with pretty much all the 2 running back builds I've ended up on.
Yeah. Who are we going to take as our other wide receiver? That's just like, what's the final puzzle?
Yeah, we're probably looking at the best available in the 5th round. Assuming we end up getting Pitts, we would be looking at, maybe a Tank Dell. DJ Moore would be pretty nice. Olave, Neighbors, Waddle. Fine with all those guys. I really haven't taken much Neighbors, which certainly makes me nervous given how bullish Scott has been on him. But at the same time, these rookie wide receivers don't tend to crush in week 1. They're rarely the guy you need. I find myself pretty on the fence with Neighbors. In DFS, I'm absolutely in love with Odunze, but he's not a guy I'm super eager to take in this format when you can get Keenan Allen as late as you can.
No, I like Neighbors this week. I wrote him up. I can't remember if I said this at the top of the show, but I just like how basically he matches up with the Vikings in all the ridiculous blitzes they do, or they never actually get pressure. Daniel Jones was really good against the blitz last year. If it's Neighbors on all this like short and manufactured stuff, then maybe he just has 10 catches for whatever 80 yards and he gets there. So yeah, I kind of like Neighbors.
Yeah, I just worry a bit about, if he is a bit of an inefficient sort of, more of a PPR merchant type player that doesn't quite apply as much in a half PPR format like Underdog. At the same time, though, we do trust in Scott Barrett. Scott Barrett is quite bullish. It's a tough one. I'd probably go Waddle if Waddle ended up falling to us. To me, he just seems like, and he's not going to fall to us. I'll switch our projections over to wide receiver, see if anyone really jumps out. Olave would be our next best option, either him or Pittman. But why don't we go Neighbors, since we spent so much time talking about him? And 2% does make me pretty nervous. So let's go Neighbors here. Can queue up Cousins. If someone drafts Cousins, I will be livid, but I think everyone has a quarterback. Everyone does have a quarterback, except for the guy who picks after us. So looks like we are locked into Cousins. So the team is going to be Kirk Cousins, Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors, Kyle Pitts. I really like that team. I think that is a really strong build. Obviously Kyle Pitts and Bijan are pretty much going to be 100% owned, but with Kirk Cousins coming in at probably 5%, maybe a little less, that stack feels really nice.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, Cousins is interesting there, because we're very excited about all of his weapons. It's like if all of them are hitting their ceilings, like the Cousins looks at least playable, right? At least should be above 0% owned. I don't know what we're expecting for Cousins ownership on the main slate, but I'd imagine that this is quite some pretty good leverage here that you're not gonna be able to get anywhere else other than Battle Royale.
Yeah, I think it is excellent leverage. And I know some people have said they're worried about the Achilles. I don't understand why you'd be worried about an Achilles for a quarterback who already can't move at all, right? What are we concerned about with Kirk Cousins and the Achilles? If his upper body works, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, you're concerned he injures it again, I guess.
I guess so. I mean, I suppose the re-injury risk would be a bit higher coming off the Achilles, but if you're worried about injuries and you're gambling on football, those things just don't really make sense to me. But yeah, this is a really great team. Cousins, Bijan, Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors. Yeah, really like our combinatorial ownerships here. Don't really have that much Ken Walker plus Bijan, so only 2% there. Feel pretty good about that. But I think that just about does it. Ryan, why don't you tell the people where they can find your stuff?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at RyanJ_Heath. And then all of my written content, as always, is on FantasyPoints.com. Advanced matchups released earlier today. And then tomorrow, once Thomas edits it, you will be able to find Data Points, which is a new video series I'm doing, just kind of walking through how I'm using the Fantasy Points data suite every single week to inform my takes, to inform my prop bets, my DFS edges. Yeah, just a video showing exactly how you get to all these crazy stats about Nico Collins against cover 3 or what have you. So yeah, definitely look for that right here on the channel as well.
Yeah, that's super helpful stuff. Fantasy Points data, obviously an incredible tool, but can also be a bit overwhelming, especially if you don't really know what to look for. So I think, educating people on how they find some of the great data points that you love to tweet about is an awesome idea. Obviously, all my stuff over at Fantasy Points, I just spent the last 48 hours helping Scott Barrett out with his great slate breakdown. So that'll drop tomorrow. We'll have, early look ready next week. I'll be in Discord. We do have a free Discord, by the way, for Underdog Battle Royale in the Fantasy Points Discord, a free channel. So definitely go check that out. That's where I will be tweeting or posting about my exposures, talking about my teams, my strategy, how injuries impact everything. I'm sure Ryan will be in there too, but that does it for the first ever episode of the Underdog Drafter Party. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and I will see you all at the top of the leaderboards.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.